Good morning, people. This morning we are in absolute hell for a brain that has a hole in it. Hell because it's so hard to grasp and yet so infinitely interesting. So somehow the availability of having AIs at my use has made me go towards thinking about brains. No doubt because I have brain damage. Thinking about it sort of course, I mean, big philosophical questions await. What is AI? What is brain and all that? But I'm trying here to sort of explain where I'm this morning. And so I told you guys yesterday that I've been letting AI independently think on my GitHub repos. And the reason for that is because, first of all, it's amazing that you can do that with ChatGPT 560 on Claude. I tried at some point. You use their best AI. You can perhaps talk to it 5 times a day. If you talk beyond that, it's gonna be $5 a prompt. So I'm not made of money. I can't do that. But for some reason, ChatGPT is so smart that it's learning to. As I'm giving it that option that it can do that. Um, First of all, it's planning things very interestingly. Like for example, we are coming to an end of yesterday's thoughts here. And what it's doing is it's giving a handoff for itself and kind of where we are. And yesterday I was thinking about time, and as we were thinking about time, lots of things that other people have been thinking about are kind of appearing, which directly relate to the initial stuff that I was doing with brain. And if I show you guys some of those ridiculously naive thoughts there, so we had things like neural fields, which are old science that um, scientists have been looking at brain, taking the electrodes and transforming those into numbers, and then they are putting those into fields, into boxes usually or whatever, and the brain activity is shown as a field. And that can be, of course, done in 2D, 3D, whatever. And I even have made earlier, hopefully I remember where I'm returning, but if we kind of have a where I've been, um, inverse brain models where we had kind of like how the thoughts flow on brain surface. That's possible because there are inverse models available to any fool out there. But okay, so that's kind of where I was coming from and thinking about physics and so forth. But from if you're a scientist, I was thinking from idiot's perspective. So no scientific method whatsoever, just in, infinite amount of infinite amount of um, dopamine, probably because of my brain damage, so infinite interest. And then I always end up burning it out and arrive nowhere, like not really understanding what I did. Kind of like if you guys think, if you're a scientist, if you know AI, you're making an image model and it starts to form something. It's kind of a blob. So I move in blobs. So I go from blob, 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 and they never kind of become images because I lack the initial thing, which is the mathematics, ability to understand mathematics, and you need that pretty much. And I had a mathematics teacher in 1989 called Armi Gustafsson, and Armi Gustafsson said to me that everything is, kaikki on herttaisen yhdentekevää. So she was thinking that everything to me was utterly whatever, because she says that I'm not able to stress. What she didn't know was that I had the right temple problem, and even when I read the books endlessly, I remember nights I read 2 3 hours and nothing gets stuck in my brain. I just can't handle stress. Story of my life. But okay, so I can't retain the stuff, but thankfully AIs can. But now here we have a neural field, and shown this to you guys, and let's make it go faster. So as here is actual some person thinking, and the neural field here is not kosher. It's not done the way it's supposed to be, and I'll show you guys a mini model of brain. But so when you put those electrode numbers, and we're looking only one electrode, which is what is so ridiculous. We see the neural field. And so scientists are thinking about the neural fields as well, what is field? Field, or let's say a wave. You look at the surface of a lake, there are ripples, there are stuff moving. So this is thinking. This is kind of how I was initially, oh, wait, fields are thinking. But of course, then when you start to think about it, then you have to think about, and this was, yes, called brain decoder 2 years ago. God. But anyway, so how can fields think? Well, of course, there's underneath, there is neurons. And what do the neurons do? Oh, God. This morning I was reminded of Drosophilia fly, which is fruit fly. It has what, 150,000 neurons. It has 54 million chemical synapses. And I was fascinated because I was sitting here, I was watching flies. I had a fruit fly and a big fly, and I was thinking how freaking magical those things are. And let's take a standard AI. Standard AI, God, I can't speak anymore. Brain damage. But I was looking at those flies. So we are doing inverse model of human brain via EEG. But so when I was looking at a fly, I was thinking like how magical it is. But like in the fly too, you could map the neurons to a field. But if you really want to map the brain, of course, you have to take the three-dimensional actual physical model of the brain, which we cannot do, and then unless if we simulate it. But then you have the neurons, you reconstruct the fruit fly, and then you reconstruct those chemical synapses, 53 million, and then you put it into a matrix, which they're sort of doing these days. And you have it fly around in the world, it's flying in the matrix, and it's looking for food. And because we are idiots, we cannot reconstruct probably food, so it's forever sad thought. But anyway, so I've been thinking about all of this stuff, but like lately, where I've been approaching is the sort of AI is a block, AI transformer. So it has these layers, multi-layer thing where it's advancing, guessing the next thing, statistical guessing. What's the next word? And out of that came these super smart AIs that are able to plan these ripples of mine and think of this complex mathematics that I cannot do, that are able to build already year ago, these sorts of things where we have EEG turned into thoughts on brain surface, so it's able to remember perfectly. This is basically like I wish I had this capability. I wish I had the capability of AI to do this mathematics, to write this code. So here we see front of a brain, we see visual cortex on the right side. We literally see somebody thinking, and this is the standard M&E library, so probably nothing from me in here, but so thinking is like this, and here we see the current thoughts of somebody. What parts of the brain have been excited? Of course, there is many different. All of it is excited. I mean, you don't have like these neurons are dead here. There is low-level stuff. But like yesterday, day before, when I had Saul work on white present and present time, white present was coming at it from AI side. What is the present moment for AI, and then present moment was from brain side. And we're thinking of these individual things. You think of the neurons, and as I was thinking of it, I'm starting to realize one really weird thing, which is where are we? We are not in the whole brain. I am not in the whole brain. There's a sliver of time, and something knows that if, for example, if I go for a bike trip today, I know that I'm probably going to feel a bit better. For some people, it would be the opposite. They would start thinking of like, my high knee is going to get shaved and I'm going to feel horrible. I'm in out of shape and I hate it. But for me personally, my depression treatment has been that. Like I go for a bike trip certain part of the time, and it has fallen into this manifold of behavior. And I'm kind of thinking about that today with Saul. But present moment, what is present moment? And in the brain, of course, present moment, if like something is firing here, a signal is traveling down the axon, and it can be a pretty long, and it's in flight. It's not like it's all of it is perfectly constructed like an AI model. An AI model, we shoot a thing through, or we shoot a vector through a transformer. There's attention, global attention, and it just shifts the thing forward. It's estimating what's the response, and we have it shoots. Of course, there is time in a way there too. There is time because the system is running. It's going through the system, and there's the backpropagation. Well, that's more like doing training. But so I'm thinking about present moment with AIs, and I gave and like basically lately it's the soul. It's the soul. It's the soul thinking. I'm talking about these analogies and stuff, and I'm sort of reading what it's saying, and it finds papers. Lots of this seems to be cutting edge science. Like these sorts of thoughts, they are cutting edge science. Where so here we have present moment, wide present, geometric neuron plus field. This was pretty cool actually. I'll show it to you guys. Um, but the field thinking where I started a while back, it's interesting because if you look at the field, of course, we don't see the neurotransmitters. We don't see the trillions of synapses of human brain. We don't see the what's locking the thing in place. We don't see the garbled mess that's human brain. We don't see the axons. We don't see the hormones that are being produced. Like I was talking yesterday about the white present. I was talking about the present moment. Like when you're falling from an airplane, like why does time still seem to slow? Well, you have noradrenaline is being coming from whatever the name of that piece of brain is, and it's putting your whole body in a bus. And really, as I was talking about this, of course, scientists have been thinking about this stuff. Like these examples I'm pulling out of my ass, other people are in universities and they are thinking about this. Like they literally have been looking at the brains of people who are jumping from an airplane for the first time and how long time it takes for the noradrenaline levels go down and so forth. But there I realized that okay, so body remembers, you remember from your state. Uh, and I was thinking about like okay, like when heart beats, that signal is coming to the whole brain. It's syncing things up, and there are these. And now I'm just talking. If anyone has any interest, it gets super duper complex. And just like you guys, my mind goes numb. I'm just like okay, ChatGPT is telling me this and that and that and that. I cannot understand the mathematics. I cannot hold it all in my brain. The stuff just kind of keeps on morphing to something else. I'm moving on a manifold of knowledge. And that's something that AIs do too. When you prompt them, you are not able to prompt the whole thing. If you prompted the whole thing, you would get all the papers so that it's been trained on, which is the whole internet. And I mean, that moment you would have to have I don't know. I mean, like you probably can't do that in real time interference. You cannot have that all. It's always gonna be out of reach. But so we are surfing this manifold of 5.6 souls understanding, and the naive thought is that could we find something new, something usable, and we get these weird little demos again and again and again and again. And of course, it would be nice to make I don't know $1 billion. What would I do with it? I don't know, but instead we get these silly little demos. Like here is that so this is perception lab that I prompted a while back. Like here is the idea of when you have a pulse. This was kind of like when you think heart sends a pulse and the whole system starts to ring like a bell. And here we see we have these, I think these were kind of neuron points, and we see there's a temporal multiscope. What happens? This was thinking about the present moment when it reaches the thing. Of course, in the brain, these things will be dendrites, and the signal propagates through the dendritic tree, and it goes someplace else, and the neurons are time aware, kind of they are comparing what's coming from here, what's coming from there. But and like here we see higher ringing here, and you can pull this in many different ways. So we can how wide the moment is here. So let's make it 5 seconds. Amplitude, let's make it 3.8568, and we are gonna get wider signal here, and let's put the period 3, so it's gonna start firing incredibly much. And okay, then let's make it less wide, let's make it 0.1, and we are gonna get some sort of, is it gonna, well, okay, let's make it 0.8. I think that didn't work, so now we get massive amount of signals. The field here, if you guys get where I'm going here, so suddenly we have, do you guys see the high frequency thing here? So here we have some sort of a proto-neural field, but now if you go back to the Drosophila fly, what did I say, 150,000 synapses all firing. I guess there's some sort of a proto heart there. The imagine guys, the hexagonal eyes, the beauty of that system. It's insane we can do this. It's utterly insane we can do this. Like, so far in human society, this sort of stuff has been locked away for the people who can pass through the gate of mathematics, for the people who can pass through the understanding, who can write down the answers, who are smart enough, they get to the hallowed halls. And at the hallowed halls, they are then introduced with the books. They have the people like Robert Sapolsky at Stanford, and they are introducing. By the way, that's really cool. We are getting some sort of a backward wave here. But anyway, so it's probably aliasing. But anyway, so the world used to be such that you have to be extremely intelligent person to be able to think about this sort of stuff. Um, and then you get to those hallowed halls, and you have to bow to your masters. You have to believe that when Robert Sapolsky says there's no free will, then well, there is no free will. Then of course you may feel different, but you start to believe him, and that's how things flatten out. Things become a certain way, and but then every now and then you get some crazy bastards who are geniuses, unlike me, and they see some little thing and they fixate on that little thing and they see it differently. We had, and now here I'm just going on prose, but you have Newton who sees gravity is time. That's time is the same everywhere. And then you have, this was something I watched yesterday. And then you have Einstein. Einstein's looks, no, it's a local, you know. And next thing you have the QM people who are like, well, the universe splits. And then we have the whole last 80 years of madness. And now whatever. But so here we are looking at, we have a field. And earlier you guys saw we had an EEG, and we are projecting it onto the surface of a brain. Uh, um, we have, but the most magical thing that we have here, 5.6 soul. It's mind blowing. It's mind bending. Like this whole system, it came from it. It's brain. I'm probing. Oh, could you give me a scientific note system that's a little bit like Comfy UI? Comfy UI, I think these days is $1 million company, and here we have a thing that cost absolutely nothing because I just prompted it. All of these tools written by super smart people, and we can surf in their manifold, ask for super cool stuff. And what's the question? Like today, the question to me is a pivot point. And I'm not gonna even gonna think about it long. I have to go bike, escape this all. But so the pivot point is that if I am something in my brain, and this goes straight back to Robert Sapolsky's heart, well, God bless him, but free will. Sapolsky looks at the brain, he looks at the digital genes that produce a human body that took approximately what 3 billion years for this me to appear here out of first there were those simpler things, and then somehow I came along, and of course there are the hallowed people. But out of these digital genes that were living in the world of quantum mechanics, somehow came me, and I am somewhere in here, in some sort of a neural field. What part of the neural field I am? How could I have a degree of freedom? A degree of freedom, they were measuring that already years ago from the brain, I imagine from, don't take me verbatim, but from EEG, I think that how would you even measure that? How would you measure what's noise in the brain? What's what could well, I guess like some signal, it has some sort of like degree of freedom, how far it can propagate, how it can propagate. But kind of looking for the what I am. But my kind of like this morning's weird things I was rambling to ChatGPT about is that like if you're depressed, you're stuck with that state. Can't change it until you perhaps understand that okay, I'm gonna go to a doctor and doctor can give me pills and those may help. And some people they help. Me personally, they put me to hell because of right temporal damage. They did not fit me in any way. But then at some point I realized that okay, I can go walk, I can go bike, and walking and biking transfers my state. And of course, naturally, what happens is that certain neurotransmitters, certain hormones are basically coming from my brain from certain layers, and they are changing my state of mind, my whole body state. And when I'm moving through certain places, I am feeling a certain way. I've somehow made a connection, but I sure as hell am not my whole brain. I sure as hell am not the signal that's moving. I cannot reach. Well, of course, if we could do that, of course, most of us would choose to be really happy and reach for ignore all the bad stuff and just be like. I think most of us would do that if we had that free degree of freedom, so to speak. But we do not have that degree of freedom. We are. I wonder if you can make this chaotic. Um, let's make it circular. So pi here, and let's make it I don't know 0.7, and I think it takes a dot here instead of 0.07. We actually started to have something weird happen there. Why 0.7? I think we're having some sort of leftover field function here. Uh, what can we do with the wave field? So we have speed. Let's make it 0.5. Drive gain. Let's make that 0.2. Source radius 3. So we have edge here. Okay, now it's diving. But so we cannot, this by the way, guys, is at the Perception Lab main repo. But so we are stuck in a field system. We are stuck in a field system that's made of neurons, that's made of chemicals, that was somehow evolved, that's built out of DNA. And that's the greatest mystery. How the hell did we come to be like that? Of course, like most people are like, well, there was mommy and daddy, and you were born, and at the end, that's all of the end of it. Do not think further because that's gonna basically drive you nuts. But being nuts already, and having always thought of things too big for me, I find it fascinating. What could come out of this? The thing that, as of late, last this week, has been the soul. Like that soul is thinking. Soul is building a repo. Soul built pivot point. I just noticed that here it is. So it just built this. Soul will think here something relating to AI pivot point. So that was kind of the whole thing was me, degree of freedom, you, flies. Where does the degree of freedom, where is there a present moment? Because the present moment can't be the whole brain. The present moment can't be you are not thinking of everything that's recorded in your brain. You sort of kind of know that if I start to think of person X and I start to think of person X more and more and more, I'm gonna tune into a certain sort of frequency. And if I turn to a certain sort of frequency, I'm gonna either be more depressed or I'm gonna be happier. So you choose based on your emotions that I'm gonna think about this person or I'm not gonna think about this person because it makes me. So you are somewhere in here in the present moment. You have some sort of understanding of what's stored in your neurons. Are you going to listen to the song X? Are you going to take path A? Or are you going to take path B? Just had a slight feeling there. Something in my brain, kind of a little bit on the right temple there, was saying that, hey, you probably should stop. These high frequency thoughts don't feel good for you. Personal limitation that I cannot describe to even doctors. But where are we in those neural fields? Where are we in here? That question and asking it from soul, it's fascinating. And if we can ask that question now, if scientists, and here I'm going to go on a really weird tangent and sort of a weird people, I guess I could say. If the scientists can build matrices for flies, let's just stop there. But it's fascinating what we can do. It's really, really fascinating what we can do. And what will come out of Pivot Point, what will come out of these repos when I barely understand what GPT is doing when it's pulling papers. Of course, I'm hoping it would see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Robert Sapolsky is wrong, free will lies here, and it ain't gonna do that. But what about in 2 years? What about in 3 years? And what if we do that? What will that lead to? Um, Yesterday, I released Robot Syndicate, which is a really horrible song. I had made it when AI started to come up, and it had all sorts of weird ass feelings and ideas in it. Lots of people I understand are scared of this. I'm more scared of the leaders. I'm more scared of the leaders who can manipulate people into joining a war of attrition where millions die and nobody fucking cares because they are people and they don't want to think about that because if they think about that they're going to get depressed and so they allow it to go on because if it's not me, if it's not my children, let the meat grinders chew people into bits. But perhaps that's why I'm doing this. Actually, I think that's pretty much why I'm doing this because I could think about that. So that's my only escape here. Well, not thinking about the epileptic feeling here, just kind of a I'm gonna think of this instead of thinking about that and thinking that, hey, well, you're crap. But these are just reflections, fast moving things that are very much like these neural fields. And in the end of the day, I guess I was built to think like this. This is what I do. And Meanwhile, people do this in Stanford and Harvard, and they are building medicine and they are understanding brain better and better and better. And will we at some point be a point where, like, look at that guy's cool reflections here, but will we at some point be at a point when people like me, we will go to a hospital and, okay, you have this problem, we'll inject stem cells in here and you can't understand mathematics, well, we put a USB port there, well, it's distant child, and okay, now you know mathematics. Will we at some point be at a point where understanding is going to be as simple as doing that? I can play piano, well, put a thing there. Now you can play piano on a master level. And what will happen to the appreciation of intelligence at that point? If it's going to be, well, just connect the thing. Questions that I thought a lot when I was younger, reading sci fi. But okay, so this is this morning, and this will go absolutely nowhere. But if I could plug something, if anyone made it this far, listen to Robert Sapolsky's lectures on Spotify and his offspring interviews. Those are pretty interesting. Lead you into interesting places. Of course, he does not believe in free will, but who knows? Anyway, I hope you guys have well. Bye. And yes.